Choosing the right author name for your low-content books can help build a strong brand and position your brand as the go-to source for books in your niche, which hopefully will result in increased overall sales of your books. Now, conversely, the wrong author name can make you look like an amateur. It can hurt your perceived legitimacy and perceived value, and ultimately leave your books collecting virtual dust on your Amazon bookshelf. Now, in some cases, the wrong author name could get your book rejected by KDP altogether. Stick around, I'm going to share how to create a compelling author name that won't get rejected by KDP and will instead help you build a strong brand that will have customers returning again and again. Welcome, I'm Rachel Harrison-Sund, and I help entrepreneurs create profitable online businesses so that they can make more money and live more life. Now, if that sounds like you, please be sure to subscribe, hit the bell, and be notified when I release one of these videos, which is each and every Monday. So, should you publish under your own name or use a brand name? That is the question. Now, this is going to be different for everyone, but here is what I recommend. I recommend publishing under your own personal name if you are already well known in your space and you have an audience of people who might actively seek out and purchase something simply because it's associated with your name. If you've achieved some sort of like semi-celebrity status and your name is recognizable. If you're a published author and you're creating a companion piece, so maybe like a prompted journal or a workbook or a notebook that goes along with one of your previously published works of fiction or nonfiction. You're a well-known author or an artist or a coach or some sort of leader in your space. So a couple of good examples here. We've got Carrie Smith. She's an author and an illustrator and an artist who created this wildly popular prompted journal series, Wreck This Journal. Another example is Latoya Nicole. She's an entrepreneur and an author who published Entrepreneur's Color 2. And then another example is Miralee Patel. She's an artist and a writer who created the Start Where You Are journal. Another good reason to use your own personal name might be if your books fall into the medium content category and you're trying to build some sort of authority in your space. So maybe you want to build a career in that space and you have plans to create maybe an online course or workshops or something like that, an actual business around it. So generally speaking, you might want to publish under your name if your name holds some sort of cachet or hopefully will hold some sort of cachet in the near future. And using it as your author name is going to work to draw shoppers in rather than push them away. Now, if none of that sounds like you, then I recommend choosing a compelling brand name for your low-content books. So what are the do's and don'ts of choosing a compelling brand name? So firstly, don't use keywords in your brand name. So using keywords in your brand name used to be a very effective way to get your book seen. You know, when I first started out, I always used lucrative keywords in my author name because over time, if my books were selling, what ended up happening was anytime someone typed in that keyword in Amazon, my author name would pop up as like the first or second result. And then obviously they would click into my author name and that would take shoppers directly to my entire author page and they would see all of the books that I've published. And that generally worked quite well for me in terms of my sales. Unfortunately, nowadays, KDP generally doesn't allow keywords in author names, and books will often get rejected if you try and slip one through. So currently, my two main brand names do still have keywords in them. They're not long tail keywords, so I seem to be able to get away with it, but that doesn't mean that any future books that I publish under either of those names won't get rejected at some point. So I have known more than one person who was publishing regularly under a particular author name for at least 1 or 2 years, and then suddenly one day, KDP decided they weren't going to allow any more books to be published using that name. Now, this was a tough pill for this one person I know in particular because they'd been having a lot of success with that brand and then suddenly they just weren't able to use it anymore. So my advice in order to avoid this is to just leave keywords out of your names altogether so that you can, just avoid a scenario like that. Now, another don't use names that are personal to you, but most likely meaningless to your audience. So I've seen a number of author names out there that are clearly the person's business name, which doesn't seem to have anything to do with the topics of their books and, instead kind of alludes to their master plan of making a ton of money on KDP. So things like, my self-publishing empire or millionaire by 30 publications, not those exactly. I don't really want to throw anyone real under the bus here, but in that realm, you kind of get the idea. Now, obviously, those types of names aren't really going to do anything for your perceived legitimacy, so I would definitely avoid them. So what should you do when choosing a compelling brand name? Do think about relevancy. So your brand name should make sense to your target market, and it should be related to your overall theme or your niche. So if you publish a lot of cat-themed books, you could call your brand Cat's Pajamas Press. If you publish a lot of travel-themed books, maybe you call it, the Flying Suitcase or something like that. If you publish lots of different themes, just think about whether there's some sort of overarching trait that ties them all together. So maybe it's more about the visual style of your book. So maybe you have a distinct abstract style that you use a lot, so you call yourself Creative Abstractions. Or maybe your books are really vibrant and colorful, so you call your brand A Colorful Life Publication. So you get the idea. Whatever it is, it should be relevant and give shoppers a general sense of the type of books that they can expect from your brand. Now, a couple of examples of really compelling brand names. One is Modern Kid Press. This name doesn't tie the author down to one ultra-specific niche, but clearly lets shoppers know that all the books by this author are geared towards kids, and then the use of the word modern makes them feel current. Another example, Crazy Tired Beaches. Now again, this name doesn't point out exactly the type of books that it publishes, but it is a name that speaks directly to its target market. Now, this name is going to strongly attract its ideal customers while simultaneously pushing away anyone who's not an ideal customer, and that's exactly what you want to be doing. I bet some of you might have laughed when you saw this, and some of you might have been completely turned off or maybe even offended. And of course, I'm not suggesting that you need to try and offend anyone, but the point is that you should be attracting your ideal customers and repelling those that aren't your ideal customers. If you try to appeal to everyone, you're just going to appeal to no one. Another good practice is to always do Amazon, Google, and trademark searches for your proposed brand name. So just search your name in Amazon search bar to see if either that exact name or something very similar already exists. You want something that's really unique and isn't going to cause confusion for shoppers. Also, it's just extremely annoying when another publisher starts using your already established brand name. This happened to me a few years ago. Our author started publishing under my exact brand name, and suddenly I had dozens and dozens of their really crappy books just starting to show up automatically on my author page, and I had to manually go through all the books on Author Central to remove them, and there really wasn't a lot that I could do about this to stop them. It's not against the rules to use the same author name as someone else, and I hadn't trademarked my name or anything like that. Fortunately, that publisher didn't last very long, probably because their books sucked and they probably weren't selling a single copy of any of them, but it was a pain in the butt. It's something I had to deal with daily until, suddenly one day they had stopped publishing. Once you've checked on Amazon, do the search again on Google, just to be sure that no one else is using your name in a similar industry. Then go to the USPTO database. I've linked to that down below. Do a trademark search just to make sure that your name hasn't been registered for a trademark. Now, technically, it shouldn't really matter if someone's registered a trademark in an industry that has nothing to do with publishing books or stationery or anything, but I would steer clear of that anyways, just in case there's a potential for them to eventually expand into other industries at some point down the line. Now, choosing a name that's going to resonate with your ideal customers, whether it's your personal name, because you have an established personal brand already, or you're in the process of establishing a personal brand, or if you have a relevant, compelling brand name, this is going to help you to build a stronger brand over time. And your brand name is going to be hopefully top of mind the next time your customers want to buy a similar book. Now, you don't need to spend weeks deliberating on a name, but do give it the thought that it deserves, and make sure you're thinking primarily about how your ideal customers are going to receive the name. If you want to learn more about low-content publishing, download my free guide, 3 Steps to Publishing Your First Low-Content Book in Less Than a Day. You'll find a link to that down in the description below, or you'll also find a link to my free Facebook group, Low Content Profits, so do check out that as well. And be sure to check out this video next about how to find profitable keywords for KDP fast. If you liked this video, hit the like button. Do subscribe, share it with your friends, anyone you think would find it interesting. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.